Hello and welcome to Metal Vice, a podcast where we talk about all things music.
Well, the things we care about.
That's right, which is mainly metal music and live music. I'm your host, Brian, joined with the other host,
Karen.
And it is another book club episode.
Book club.
This is our third book club we've done. The first one being Randy Blythe's Dark Days, and then Corey Taylor's Seven Deadly Sins.
I forgot about that. I was like, wait, 3? What?
Yeah. You were not a big fan of that Corey Taylor book.
No.
This one, though, as the title of our episode says, is Mark Morton's A Heavy Metal Memoir, Desolation. This was released, let me pull that up real quick, June 25th of 2024 by Hachette Books. This is written by Mark Morton with Ben Apparia. Sorry, I fucked up that name if I did. Appapari. That sounds about right, yeah. We have the physical copy. You did read the physical copy of the book over a plane ride.
Yeah.
You've read the entire book over a plane ride.
Yeah, on the way home from back to the beginning. So it was a long plane ride.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But like 8 hours straight. Like you couldn't stop reading.
I couldn't stop reading it. No. Once I started, I just couldn't put it down.
I picked up the audio version and we listened to that together while we ate dinner and whatnot over the last couple of months. So that's how I consumed this book. The audio version of the book is also narrated by or read by Mark Morton himself. Yes. So unlike Randy, I don't think his first book had a audio version, but Mark's does, and it's read by Mark. Same with Corey Taylor. He read his book as well.
Yeah, he did.
Which I know some people, that's a big appeal to them for like the audiobooks, especially with like the nonfiction. But for me, at first, I didn't necessarily like Mark Morton's sort of reading the book.
Oh.
It took me a while.
Why?
So same thing with Corey Taylor's. It felt like he was just reading it. Where if you get like an actual voice, like somebody who reads book, they're usually voice actors and whatnot that they can add to it, add on top of the dramatization and whatnot.
I see.
So it did take me a little bit to get into it, but once I was 10, 20 minutes into the book, I was like, actually, Mark's actually not that bad. I think Mark's a better reader at books than Corey Taylor, for instance. Yeah. I didn't like Corey's. Maybe that was the subject matter as well. But Mark's, I did get into his dialogue and the way he was reading his book, definitely for sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to him read the book.
Yeah, no. Like I said, as I went into it, I got into it more. Yeah. We haven't really covered this yet, but this is, it's a memoir. It basically covers his early life up to 2018 or so, I want to say. So just looked it up. It actually goes to the beginning of January 2019 with his crossover song, which was sung with Chester Bennington. Sort of culminates or kind of finishes up the book. Yeah,
that's like the last part of the book.
And to be honest, like going through chapters, we're not going to, so we forgot to put this up front. We are with book clubs and like with the movie reviews and whatnot and the TV review things that we do and whatnot. If you haven't read the book or watched the movie, we are going to talk about it a little bit and sort of, give things away. So if you want to read the book and not like have things spoiled, that's your warning. Fucking stop. Like, how fucking shit works already. You should. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the book a little bit and some shit we'll talk about that's in the book. So if you don't want to hear that, stop listening, go read the book first, and then maybe come back, or maybe not. I don't know. Anywho, getting back to the book. So like I said, it took me a while to get into it with Mark reading the book. And again, it could have been the subject matter and whatnot, because the first couple of chapters, I wasn't really all that into. Like
his early childhood and stuff?
I get it. You need that backstory to understand who he is, where he came from, to understand where he goes in life and how it all plays in, because it all does come back in like full circle in a lot of ways, right? So it is important. And of course, I'm glad he didn't put it in there, but I wasn't necessarily engaged as much as I was with the later chapters once he got into music and how he got into music and how he followed down the music path and his journey through that. That was what was really sort of gripping for me and the thing that I cared most about.
Okay. That's understandable, because the first couple chapters are about his family and like where they came from and his early life and stuff. But I think he does early on say, if I remember right anyways, very early on say, I did not come from a musical family, but my parents encouraged music once, or like they always encouraged music.
Yes.
More classical music or like listening to music. And, once they found out that he was engaged in it, getting him with like a neighbor, I think, to like kind of learn more about music and stuff like that. So I think that was, for me anyways, this is just my opinion, was early enough in the book that I'm like, I want to know how his path has moved forward.
Yes.
So I was engaged in those early
Right.
chapters and stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, you're absolutely right that, you know, he does go through all of that, talking about how they always had music on and whatnot, and it was very influential for him. And yeah, his parents were very encouraging as well. I think they ended up buying him like a cheap beat up guitar or something. I think that's how that worked.
I don't know if it was beat up, just a cheap guitar.
All right.
Yeah.
To me, when I think cheap, I think like cheap beat up
Yeah.
and like classified ads or some shit.
Yeah, I think he did like piano and stuff like that as well with like a neighbor.
I can't remember that.
If I remember right, I think the neighbor.
But it was funny, like when he started with the neighbor, he had a few like musical teachers where they're like trying to help him learn like chords and whatnot. He's just practicing with them. And he says at one point in the book, like, yeah, they're giving me shit to learn. He's like saying, hey, here's a piece of music, learn how to play this piece of music. And he's like, I would fiddle with it for a little bit, but then I'd get bored and I'd want to play my music, the music that like AC/DC and like, I don't know if that's what it was.
I think that was later on, yeah.
But he's like, that's the kind of shit I want to listen to or play. So I'm going to stop following your instructions and play those type things. I thought that was kind of funny because I do the exact same thing when I try to learn something. You do have to like learn the basics. A friend was telling me that. And I was like, I know, but like, I don't want to. I just want to jump full force into it.
To be able to play a song right away.
Yeah. But you can't do that. So I did like that. And also like when he was talking about his like early childhood, there were moments where I was like, I did shit almost just like that, where he's like talking about growing up and going to play in the like fields and whatnot with his friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was very reminiscent for me as a child. And I know, you know, we're a few years younger than he is, but it definitely like rung some bells in like the, you know, the 90s kids growing up. I don't know if children still go outside and play or they're too busy with their iPads and whatnot.
Yeah, who knows? I don't see very many kids outside. So.
Old man Brian be like, go outside and play, get some fresh air.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes through the book and just talks about different, as he like goes through high school, finding bands and whatnot. I can't remember. He like shares like his first lyrics that he wrote for a song.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the name of the band. Again, we've listened to this several times. Well, not several times, several sessions over the few months.
It's been a long time that we've really been going at it. So
did not take notes. But like, yeah, going through different bands in high school and whatnot, meeting different people in high school as well, going to parties and playing parties. That was really kind of cool to hear the backstory behind all of that.
Yeah, I think the aspect of him reminiscing of going through school and all that, it kind of, because Mark's personality to me is kind of like meek, quiet person who's, you know, not that, you know, in my opinion, not that outgoing and stuff like that. Like he's just going to sit back until something happens and then he'll engage, sort of thing. You kind of see it in Philadelphia, where like he's not necessarily the front person, like being loud and all that stuff. It's, you know, once he's engaged, then he's in, you know, then he has emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that Philadelphia documentary you're talking about, like he brings that up in this book as well. Of like, I was in the back of the bus drunk, and the Randy was out there being loud and obnoxious, and I came out and was like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of him, blah blah blah, and they got in a fight, and that's the fight that's in the documentary.
Yeah,
like we read that and it happened, and we're like, but is that the same fight? And he does say it is. And we that night we went back and rewatched Philadelphia again. But yeah, I had that same vibe from him, or I have always had that same vibe from Mark, of him being just sort of, you know, laid back, sort of relaxed, chill kind of person. But there's a few stories in this book where he definitely comes off a little scrappy and a little angsty as well. Like there's a time where he's in a club. One of his bands performed, and he's out in the crowd hanging out, drinking and whatnot. And he's like bumping into a guy who's getting pissed that he's like, it's a different kind of crowd than like a metal crowd. It was like he was his like black country type phase or whatnot, and not phase, but he was playing. And then he gets to fight with this guy, and both of them get thrown out. And that was a little weird to me to think, like, I've never thought of Mark in that sort of way, but there's a few instances in this book where he does come off sounding very scrappy and angsty to me.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I agree with you that like typically before going into this book, I was like, oh, Mark's just a chilled, laid back kind of guy. But there's a few instances, like I said.
I guess I was more referencing high school, and it was what I was going.
Sorry.
What I was going to say is that it was very much kind of like how we are, where we're kind of quieter, you know, we sit back sort of thing until we're engaged.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of came across, where once he found out like a certain person played an instrument or a certain person listened to music that he listened to or whatever, it's like that's when he made his connections and then was introduced to bands or introduced to other people, that sort of thing. So that's where I was going with that, not necessarily
the other stuff I brought up.
The other stuff,
but no, I was just picking up on that as well, because that was one point I wanted to call out at some point during this conversation. But yeah, going back to high school, it did feel that way for sure. Also, one thing I want to call out real quick that I really, really enjoyed about this book, each chapter is named, outside of the first couple, is named after like a song or a band or something music related. And the beginning of the chapter starts off with this little segment, sort of like an intro into it, where he talks more about that song or that band or something and why it's so important to him, what he finds inspirational about it. And then that same band or song makes an appearance later on in the chapter. And he goes more in depth in terms of that. There's like I can't remember exactly what references there are. And again, there's a few that aren't, like there's a chapter on Chicago, which is just his time in Chicago. But I really liked that structure where it was sort of each chapter had its own little intro into what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't remember that from reading it or listening to it that was like the case. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
I didn't notice it.
It's interesting because every time you look at the chapter, it has like that weird sort of outline around it, and it goes for like a little section, and then it boom goes into the chapter.
Oh, interesting.
When you're listening to it, it doesn't come off that way, but from like a printed version of the book, you definitely get that.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. I guess when I read it, I just read it.
You just read it and didn't pick up on that?
I didn't really, notice anything different.
So. No, I definitely picked up on it while listening to it. And there was one point when we were listening to it, I ended up picking the book up and like following along in the book itself. And I think that's when I was like, I think this is what's going on, and did that. And like, yep, sure enough, that's what is happening.
I see.
But I loved that structure of it and all those little, like I said, those intro sections sort of giving a more insight into Mark and where his musical thoughts are and where his musical upbringing, like a journey came from and whatnot. So I love that. But yeah, going again, we're jumping around a little bit here. Going back to the high school thing where you're saying like he was very timid and reserved. The second chapter of the book is called The Fat Kid. And he does sort of go into his sort of self-view of himself, of being like the fatter kid wearing baggier clothing and whatnot. And the one thing that the physical book gives you that the audiobook doesn't, obviously, is in the middle. There's sections of photos that you can look at going back in time. And there's some really cool photos in here just showing, growing up and whatnot. And seeing some of these photos of him as a kid, like, I'm like, you're not fat. What are you talking about? But at the same time, I remember having those same thoughts growing up as well. And looking back at older photos, I mean, like, oh no, I wasn't fat. I'm fatter now by a lot, but back then I was.
Fat?
Yeah. Even when I was like the thinnest in my life, I was like, oh my god, I'm so fat. But like looking back, I was like, god damn it, I'd kill to have that, be that skinny again.
Yeah.
So I think that does set up a theme that is sort of in the book every now and then of Mark either having imposter syndrome or just thinking like, you know what I'm trying to say? I
don't know about the imposter syndrome. I don't remember that coming up. Why would you say that? I
just felt like earlier on, especially earlier in life, like you were saying, like the whole timid reservedness through high school and whatnot, that he kind of came off of like, oh, I'm a little shy and not embarrassed, but like I'm definitely timid and shy about myself and my skills and whatnot, or something like that. I want to improve. I want to get better, which again, then feeds into his other personality trait that I think we've noticed, or I've noticed, hearing him speak at like Headbangers Bow and hearing interviews with him, of this sort of drive to be successful, not necessarily be successful, but to make art that he's proud of.
Yeah.
And like even in the book, he's like always self-driven to like, I can do better. I can make something better. I can do better.
Yeah. I think self-driven is a good word and not imposter syndrome. Yeah. I feel like that's more, like we shouldn't be here. And I
guess maybe I'm using the wrong term.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. I just always feel like, well, I guess Randy even says it. I mean, we're bringing up Randy now. This is Mark's book, but like because he's the vocalist on the boat, but he's like, I don't know how 4 kids from Virginia like are here now, sort of thing. So,
but yeah, also like going through high school, talking about the bands he had, like we've said, there's one band, I think it was Laughter spelled backwards or something like that. I can't remember one. I think he was in that band for a little bit. Again, sorry we didn't take notes. We should have taken a lot better notes while
Well, we
reading
took no
this.
notes, so.
Maybe, yes, exactly. Maybe the next book club we can take notes while we go through.
I did with Randy's book, so I felt like it was better to, you know, more cohesive of remembering it. So.
And I made my book club read Randy's book, and we recorded that episode soon after. So I had a good conversation with that book club about that book that helped me guide my sort of thought processes. I didn't make my book club read this. I was going to, and I told them that, and they're like, we would have fucking revolted. They did not like Randy's book.
I think this might have been a little bit better.
I think so. One of the complaints with Randy's book was that it didn't go too far into the industry aspect of things and his journey through and becoming the lead singer of Lamb of God, where this one definitely does go more heavily into that.
And I think that's why I was so engaged on the airplane of like keep reading it and read the whole thing, was just because it is engaging. It is like, okay, I know the end result. Like, I just want to know what the story is up to that end result.
Right.
Sort of thing.
And also like the prologue for this also sort of gives you a good solid outline of what to expect in the book, because it starts off with him in a hotel in New York before they played with Metallica, I think it was, at Madison Square Garden. And he's like, I can't believe we're fucking playing Madison Square Garden. As he's having sort of, I don't think it was withdrawal, but like
overdose,
very close to like an overdosing.
Yeah.
And then talking about his daughter's death, and continuing on past that. And then it sort of goes into the chapters and starting to build up toward that. So that prologue gives you a very solid understanding of what path you're taking through for this book.
Yeah.
But like we said, going through like high school, talking about all the bands, we said that multiple times. There were some really cool, fun stories about like house parties they played, the different bands that they built through high school and all of that. And then I think there was one point in high school where I can't remember how old they were, but they ended up going to a club, and it's like a 21 only or 21 plus club. And like the promoter was like, I'm not going to let you guys play. And they're like, come on, just let us play, please. We're going to be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing was like they agreed to play the club. It was a school night. That's one thing, but they agreed to play the club, and nobody really asked like how old you were until they got there and like were setting up all their shit and stuff. And that's when the owner was like,
it's like, oh,
wait,
shit.
how old are you? And I think they were 16. For some reason, that's in my mind. And they were like, we promise we won't do anything. We won't drink. We won't, do anything.
And they had to like hang out in the back room, didn't they? Like when they weren't on stage.
I don't think it was the back room. I think it was a table by the office. So I don't know if that's necessarily the back room or like how that is. I kind of took it as like a table against a wall that like was by the door. And it's like, so the owner was basically like, you two, if you're not on stage, you will be sitting right here where I can watch you.
All right. I thought it was in the office. So when I said back room, that's what I meant. But okay, you might be right. That's just like near that where I can keep eyes on you at all times.
Yeah, because obviously the club owner didn't want to get in trouble for having underage kids there, and also didn't want like them sneaking drinks and stuff like that. But
go ahead.
I was going to say, overall, they were good boys and didn't do anything. And then, won them over and were able to play that club over and over and over.
Yeah, so. He said like we played this club so many times, and eventually he's like, all right, I don't need to keep an eye on you. I trust you. Yeah. You're going to be good guys and whatnot. Yeah. And I can't remember exactly what happened, if they ended up did sneak drinks or what. I don't know. Can't remember if he brought that up, but that was a really fun story that they had. There was also the Battle of Bands that they were in, and actually won with one of Mark's songs that he wrote, or his very first song or lyrics that he wrote the lyrics for. Obviously, I think he wrote the music for it as well. But I think they were a cover band. That might have been that Laughter Band, or was it something different?
I don't remember.
Axis, maybe? I think it was Axis, actually. Okay. And I can't remember if Axis is the same band that they took on. No, I think Axis formed into the Killing Cycle. Okay. Again, I can't remember how this all goes. I'm just reading the chapters and trying to remember how this happened as well. But yes, that's what I remember. Then he ends up going to college because his dad was like, you're not gonna play music. You'll go to college. You're gonna get a real degree. It's not gonna be like liberal arts type degree. You're going for music or art. You're going for a degree. And he ended up going for political science, which I did not expect that from him. I would have expected music honestly.
Yeah, but he was told he couldn't do that. So,
yeah, I did not know that.
Political science is fun. I don't know.
Right. I mean, he ended
A
up
lot of
getting,
people in my degree program went on to do political science.
because
So.
yours was history, and that's
Yeah.
like that funnels into
Yeah.
that really well. His sub minor, or his, I guess not sub minor, minor, that's what they call it. He got a bachelor's degree in political science and a minor in African studies, I believe it was.
Yeah. I did a African study. My curriculum was on African studies.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I thought you did Soviet shit.
Oh, yeah, I took a lot of Soviet courses, but my curriculum was on African tribe.
Interesting. I did not know that actually about you. I always thought it was Soviet.
No,
Did you ever tell me that?
I don't know. I hated the class. So.
Oh, really? Because all you talked about was the Soviet classes.
I
You
loved the
those.
I loved the professor for the Soviet classes. That was one thing, and I really enjoyed the courses on Soviet Union. Yeah.
Okay. But while in college, that is where we meet John Campbell and Chris Adler as well. Both of them were in his dorm, if I remember correctly.
Was it Chris or Willie?
I know, no. Willie was the brother of Chris.
Oh, because Willie comes later. Yeah,
Yes.
You're right.
And like he just hears them playing music, and I think, I'm trying to remember here, I think John was actually a guitar player at the time, and he would be playing guitar in his room or something, and Mark would hear the music coming out of his room, and they'd chat a little bit, and like, oh yeah, we should jam sometime. And then the same thing with Chris as well, just like, hey, we should jam, hang out. And they ended at some point forming the band. I think there was a couple other iterations before this, and a few other bands and whatnot, but they formed the band Burn the Priest at some point. And yeah, I can't remember exactly how all the college era went with them.
I think it was very quick because they talk about jobs that they had and stuff like that with Burn the Priest. And then, but that was all in Virginia that all started.
Yes.
And then I feel like they didn't have a vocalist at the time.
Right.
And there was somebody else who played bass, I think. If I remember right. I can't remember. But that person went away to college or something.
Yeah. Was that before he went to college? Was that one of the bands they were in? Like
No, I don't
the
think
Killing
so.
Cycle?
I don't think so because he wouldn't have known John and.
Well, again, see, this is where it's all melding to me. Like he was in several bands through high school and up to college, and before Burn the Priest and college as well. And so many different people jumping around between bands, and I can't remember. If John, like, again, this is where we didn't take notes and like who was in what band and whatnot and at what time.
So maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe they did form Burn the Priest, and then Mark is the one that came to Chicago for grad school.
Yes.
So he's the one that left.
Yes, but there definitely was a bassist there as well, I think, or another guitar. No, well, so maybe it was just God damn it, this sucks. They were an instrumental band in Burn the Priest, did a bunch of stuff. And I remember him talking or telling a story about trying to find a lead singer, and they couldn't find one. I think that was for either Axis or Killing Cycle. And again, this is where it's all now muddling in my head a little bit. But at least Burn the Priest, he wrote some songs. They got stuff going. It was all instrumental. And then he came to Chicago for his grad school, and they continued Burn the Priest without him.
Yeah, and they were getting some success.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when they brought on Randy.
Yes.
And he knew of Randy from the scene, the punk scene, not necessarily the metal scene, which, if you know Randy, he is not a metalhead. He'll say that over and over and over.
I mean, looking at Lamb of God, I would not have known that. But hearing him talk at like Headbanger's Boat and watching, the documentary, not Philadelphia, what's As the Palace Burns?
Yeah.
And he talks a little bit about that and reading his book, obviously. I was like, holy shit, really? I always pictured you as like a big metalhead, not a punk kid.
I remember an interview. Gosh, I don't even know when they did those interviews, but it was like it's just a guy reading off of a piece of paper, and I think it's from Wikipedia of the things that are true or not true.
It was, I think it's Loudwire does that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Loudwire does it where they do like the Wikipedia facts and whatnot.
Okay. Well, I feel like it was before COVID that I saw it.
Yes.
That is like where is like supposedly it's like, I don't even remember the bands, but like these three bands were like very influential into your you joining Lamb of God, and he's like, No, I'm a punk kid. Like, I'm not.
One of them
I
was
didn't listen to metal.
Megadeth.
Yes.
And he's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
toured with Megadeth. I respect Megadeth,
Yeah, but I don't
they were
listen
not
to
an
them.
influence.
Yeah. So that's what I remember, and that was from pre-COVID. So
Yeah.
I guess Loudwire's. I mean, I'm sure it's been around forever, but in my mind, that's something that we started looking at a lot past COVID. So
Loudwire's been around fucking forever.
Oh, I'm sure,
Because
yeah.
I mean,
I just
Lou
didn't look at
Brutus is Loudwire, and we used to listen to him all the time back in like high school. He was always on
Yeah.
Rock 108.
but he was on Loudwire.
That's the channel he has, I think, is Loudwire.
Oh.
I don't know if they're the same. I always assumed they were,
Oh,
but
okay.
this is just like their internet presence doing that. Because I remember those like Wikipedia facts.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting to Chicago with Mark doing his graduate degree. I can't remember at what point in the past. I don't know if it was an interview, if I was just talking to somebody, but somehow I had heard somebody in Lamb of God had a master's degree. And at first I was like, oh, it's probably Mark if I had to guess. And because I also heard he went to Chicago. And I was like, oh, so he came here to work on his master's. Mark did, and he must have done music. So he was at Roosevelt. Clearly I was a little bit right because he went to Roosevelt, but it was a graduate degree in political science, again, working on that. And if I remember correctly, he said his grades were fine. They weren't stellar. And his drinking picked up quite heavily in Chicago, where he would drink a 6-pack starting at night, write a paper the night before it was due, show up to class still somewhat buzzed and drunk to hand his paper in. And he's like, I got by. I did okay. I didn't do great. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't like vibing that much. He was trying to find a band and couldn't get something kicked off.
He just couldn't get the scene going here in Chicago. Yeah. And he kept hearing, and this is where like Randy came in and they were having success with Burn the Priest and stuff like that. So he was, like hearing all that happening and not necessarily having the best time here in Chicago.
Yeah. He also lived over, he said, Ashland and Broadway. Those two streets don't intersect.
No, they don't.
Diversity.
But it was well, I said Ashland Diversity because that's where I worked, but he was on Ashland in Boys Town. So
those two aren't even close though, are they?
They are, yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah, up Halstead. Maybe Halstead and Ashland.
Maybe that's where it was. Okay, Halstead and Ashland.
Because like up that way it would be Boys Town.
And then you follow Halstead all the way up to Boys Town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm trying to say is like those two neighborhoods or those two sections, the Ashland and the Boys Town, is vastly far away. Like it's a quite significant travel to get to the Roosevelt campus, which is downtown in the Loop.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked to hear that he was that far north in the city as well.
I mean, it could just be
money
for rent and everything like that.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. And this was in the 90s. So when you read it the first time, I was like, yeah, he couldn't find any music. I was like, the scene here in Chicago is awesome. I didn't realize Reggie's wasn't around back then. Because I was also like, if he's at Roosevelt, that's so fucking close to Reggie's. How could he not have gone down to Reggie's?
Yeah, but he does talk about like Metro and stuff like that. So.
He saw a show at Metro and Aragon, I think were the two venues he called out seeing shows. This is also where he discovered his love for sort of Southern rock music as well. Because he called that out. I was like, I love Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I discovered my love for Lynyrd Skynyrd in Chicago. It's funny, I had to leave my home to find the music from my home that I deeply love. And I thought that was so fucking weird, but it kind of somewhat makes sense. There's a good sort of bluesy, rocky sort of scene here in Chicago for sure with Buddy Guy. He did call out Buddy Guy being from Chicago. He's got his blues place not too far from our place. And then he didn't call it out in the book, but I did think about it. Kingston Mines is a great fucking spot. And that's right up in his neighborhood. But he also, like you said, talked about Boys Town, where he's like, that was a different experience for me.
Well, especially, being from Southern Virginia and coming to the big city.
Boys Town, for those who don't know, it's no longer called Boys Town. Now it's called North Halstead. Yeah. Because they wanted to be more inclusive. But Boys Town was the predominantly gay neighborhood in Chicago.
I think everybody still calls it Boys Town, even though it's North Halstead.
North is such a shitty fucking name, North Halstead. Yeah. Boys Town, I knew it was a gay community, and therefore all inclusive to all. Yeah. That's what I always thought.
Yeah, that's what I would. I mean, I get the whole Boys Town because everybody's boys. But it's basically part of Lakeview.
But we can come up with a better name than North fucking Halstead.
Yeah, I would agree.
In any case, like, it was I don't want to say it was a different scene in the 90s, because I mean, we haven't really explored Boys Town that much, but we have walked around at brunch and seen some of the stuff that Mark was talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, all
Well,
right.
I think it would be different in the night. I mean, it's all over the place now,
Yeah.
where in the 90s it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, people were more isolated then than they are now, so.
But Mark wasn't really involved with school. He wasn't enjoying school as much as he used to, or at least he did at an undergrad level.
Yeah, he did say that he wanted to go to grad school because he enjoyed studying, he enjoyed the courses and stuff, but then once he like left to come here, it wasn't the same enjoyment.
Right, exactly. And so he ended up dropping out of school and working up in Skokie, Illinois, which is a suburb just outside of Chicago, where he was working as a framer for, he said it was very repetitive, very boring. We just did a bunch of frames for like hotel rooms and whatnot, like photos and whatnot. And
Framer. I was thinking of like a house framer. I'm like, I do not remember this.
no, but he was a carpenter back down home.
Yeah, but I didn't remember it here in Chicago. That's why I was like, framer. Are you sure that was right?
It's stuck in my mind because he's like, what's that?
Because of four-sided?
Yes, exactly. Because he said it was so boring, very repetitive work. It was easy work. Like I could do it. It was okay, but it was very boring and repetitive because I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over. And I'm doing these shitty prints that are going to end up in like Motel 6s and shit like that. Think of the art that you see in a hotel room. Like having to stare at that every day, all day would be fucking annoying. And it's stuck in my head because we don't get all of our posters framed. It's expensive. We try to get posters framed, and we go to the small shop here in Chicago called Four-Sided. And the last time I called to make an appointment to get stuff framed, she asked me like, "What's your name? What's your phone number?" And I gave that to her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I know who you guys are. You're not afraid of color. This will be fun. Come on in." And I was like, "Oh, all right." And she must have the same sort of thought of like, "God damn it, I have to do another black mat with plain black frame or some bullshit like that." So that made me smile a little bit with that interaction.
I see.
Only reason I brought that up. So the Chicago portion of the book is very short. I was hoping for a lot more. I was hoping you enjoyed Chicago. I love Chicago.
Yeah.
We moved here 10 years ago, and I fucking love this town so much. And hearing that he didn't love it as much as I did was like, damn it, why didn't you love it as much? What could have been better type thing. And not everybody's the same. That's the moral of the story there, Brian. Not everybody is like you.
No, thank goodness.
Wow. So then he ends up going back home. He's like, you know what? I'm going to head back home. I'm going to burn the priest again. And
well, they kind of coax him into coming back home.
Do they?
Yeah, because I think they were like, you could come back and join the band. At that point, I think, was Willie in the band or was that the other player?
That was the other guitar player.
Okay.
So they had found a guitar player. This is what it was, right? They found a guitar player to replace Mark when he went to school. And they were starting to get success. And Mark was like, it's going to feel weird coming back. They're not going to kick him out. Like, he's a member of the band.
Yeah.
He's been playing my music. He's good. He's been adding contributions to the band. It'd be really shitty to kick him out because I decided I want to come back. Like, I left the band. Like, Yeah. So he comes back. And they add a second guitarist. And he's like, it was weird at first, but it started to jive a little bit and started to come together pretty well. And at that point, that's when John, I think, moved over to play bass. And then Chris on drums. And then Randy now on vocals. They're no longer just a straight up instrumental band. And before all this, like, I didn't say this, but, we talked about how in high school he was jumping all over the place. And you talked a little bit about the scene in Chicago, how they knew of Randy from the punk scene. Like,
yeah, not in Chicago, but in Richmond.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. Sorry. But like, it seemed like people were jumping around in bands. They all knew each other. There's several points in the book where, Mark's like, we knew XYZ person from XYZ band from touring around the area with us. Mm-hmm. And it felt very much like the first time we saw Thrash of the Titans at Gabe's, where we're sitting there with Thrash of the Titans is a band out of Des Moines, Iowa, with our friend Jerry, and we've become friends with the other members of the band. But we went there to see Jerry and see his band for the first time, and they were the headliner that night. And before his show, he's talking like, oh, this person over here is from XYZ band in Des Moines. They're not playing tonight, but he's a really good guitar player. Oh, that person over there, great singer. them over there, not a big fan of their music, but very, very talented musicians. And it was like, holy fuck, everybody in that scene in Des Moines knows each other. And it felt very much what Mark was talking about there. It's like, oh shit, there's like these little pockets of musicians all over the country that are just sort of like, this is our pocket. And he does call that out where Richmond had a sound to it. Virginia had a sound to it. Like, you knew that sound, like, oh, that band is from our scene and whatnot. And I thought that was really cool to see. So with Burn the Priest, they start doing some EPs. They get some EPs recorded and whatnot. They found a friend to do art, and like the guy did the art. Mark didn't give him much like guidance or I can't remember what it's called, but he basically like, here's the theme I want, here's what I want the art to look like. I think he just said, I trust you, go do your thing. He came back with a piece of art. Mark's like, I don't fucking like that, but I think everybody in the band loved it, type thing. And same with the name Burn the Priest. Mark was not a fan of the name Burn the Priest.
He just didn't want to be a touring band as Burn the Priest. Yeah.
So they do a few EPs, they do a bunch of shows and whatnot. Things are looking good. They're shopping around to get a label. They end up getting a label. And Mark's like, yeah, I really, really want to change our name. Finally convinced the band to change their name. They're trying to figure out how to change the name. I can't remember who came up with the name. I can't remember who it was.
No, somebody else was like, well, how about we use the name of your old band, Lamb of God. So then Mark had to call those band members and kind of say like, hey, would you mind if we use this name for our band now? Which he does not mention that he was in a band called Lamb of God
up to this point.
So, which I think is kind of good because, you know, like it's like, oh, I didn't know that there was another band when you were in high school that was called Lamb of God. So, so those band members must have just been like, yeah, go ahead. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, we're not using the name, so go ahead. And then they had to make the phone call to the producer or like the record exec person to kind of say like, hey, I know you're working on sign it, or like we've signed with you, but we want to change our name, sort of thing. So.
Yeah, it was like the last thing before we signed the paperwork and whatnot that we want to change this. And, you know, they've been touring a little bit in the East Coast and whatnot. I think they may have, mostly the East Coast. I don't know if they've gone much further out of that.
I don't think so. Like Philadelphia and Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, basically, like, yeah, we're going to change the name. And there's like a silence at the end of the line. Like, you know, we're doing a lot. You guys have built up a lot of headway with your current name. There's a lot of buzz around you in the community. Just out of curiosity, what do you want to change it to? And yeah, that's when they like laid it on him, like Lamb of God. And they said very triumphantly how Mark read it. And he's like, and silence again. Holy shit, that's fucking awesome. You guys are great. Yeah, that's going to fucking kill. That's what we'll do. And so that's what they did. They changed their name to Lamb of God, that we all know them as. And then that's the history, I guess, or up to that point. Up to this point, though, also, I don't know when Willie came in. I can't remember when Willie came in.
He does mention it. I just can't remember when.
I think it was before all of this took place.
It could have been, yeah.
The other guitar player, I think his life was progressing and he didn't want to tour as much or couldn't tour as much.
Yeah, couldn't do shows and stuff, yeah.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah. And the last show was going to be in New York at a big New York punk club.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want that to be my last show. Can I please play that for my last show?
Yeah, because Mark does mention that I think he wanted to do more of a career thing because I think he was like either getting a family, not getting a family. You don't like
starting
a
family,
that sort of thing. And you do kind of need more of a stable life than what a band, especially a band at this age could. Or when I say age, I mean like the age of the band or the, you know, like
stage of their career.
Yeah, the stage of their career where you're not necessarily able to work a 9-to-5 job, that sort of thing. You have to kind of have like gig work or, you know, work that you can take long periods off and stuff like that. And this guy just didn't really necessarily want to do that. So that's where
Willie
comes in, which is Chris's brother.
Yeah, Willie has been hanging out with them a lot, always at the practice studios. Yeah. He knew the songs. He could play the songs. He was a good guitar player.
Yeah. Him and Mark had good chemistry. Well, when I say chemistry, just like working together sort of thing. And
when he came in, he's like, we jive really well.
Yeah, able to write riffs off of each other and stuff like that. So
yeah, really, really good vibes for sure. Yeah, like I said, I can't remember exactly when that was, but I think that was before they got signed by this label.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And again, I can't remember the name of the label. They were a newish label that just had sort of started off and whatnot. I think they said.
Maybe. I don't remember that part, but yeah.
He calls out the individual people, and again, if we had taken better notes, we would have known that a little better. So then they go out, they do their first album, which was Burn the Priest, I believe. Or was it? No, New American Gospel.
New American Gospel, yeah.
Which I can't remember exactly how good it did, but they did pretty well with that album.
I think they did pretty well, yeah.
They talk about that. They did some touring and whatnot, which, again, this is where I was wanting to read most of, or what I wanted most of in this book, is the stories from like the road and whatnot. And we definitely got that, especially early on. And he did talk about other touring, as I said before that. They went to New York for that final show with their previous guitar player. And I think it was on this tour, they didn't have any money for a bus. So they all had like just this cramped bus. Well, sorry, trailer, or not bus trailer.
Dan.
Touring bus, but they had enough money to get like a van that they all would squeeze into and whatnot. Ended up starting a bunch of fights amongst themselves with people getting too drunk and pissing on each other by mistake in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Was that the tour with Guar? Or was that their first tour?
Yeah, I can't remember if that was their first tour, but it was definitely one of their early tours for sure.
Yeah. So this is kind of where it kind of becomes a fun thing in the book, is he calls out the bands that kind of took them under their wing, sort of thing, and like took them on tour, or like that they were able to be the first opener for it. And that's why I think it was Guar, as that they were the first opener, because he points out, he's like, Guar fans are not fans of openers.
Yes.
They only want to see Guar.
Yes.
So that's where they were like, we are going to win over the crowd every single night, or try to win over the crowd.
Yeah, we're going to come out here, give us all our energy we can, and we're going to kick you in the face. And if you don't like it, too bad. We're still going to fucking do it. And yeah, that was awesome to see.
Yeah. And I feel like every night since then, they just give it all every single night. So from the 90s to now, it's the same performance.
Yeah.
And in a good way, it's the same performance, not in a bad way.
We have said that too. Like, if you've seen one Lamb of God show, you've seen a Lamb of God. Like, they're all the same shows.
Yeah, it's going to be the same show, yeah.
The same energy, the same vibe.
Yeah, I don't want to say the same show, but yes.
Yeah.
They put on a great performance.
They don't half-ass it. They come up there and it's their job. That's what they're up there to do, and they fucking are very good at what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was the first tour or not. It's definitely called out a lot with Guar, and other bands as well. Like, again, I can't remember exactly when, but like Mushroomhead, they did not gel well with them. I Hate God, they were on tour with them, and I think that's when they shared the bus for the first time, where, again, they couldn't have a bus, but they didn't want a van. So one of the bands was like, you can share the bus with us, and we can take turns sleeping in bunks and figuring shit out and whatnot. And I think that may have been with I Hate God.
Oh, okay.
And again, Mark comes out and like pisses in the sink or something, or like on somebody in like a drunken haze or something in the middle of the night. Can't remember exactly, but also with all the tours, I think this is when you were reading the book on the plane, you kind of lean over to me like, every single band on their Headbangers boat is on this book or listed in this book that they toured with or something.
Yeah.
And like, even Randy has said that, like, I booked my friends for this gig on the boat, and they're almost all of them in this book. We were trying to think like, who's listed in this book that hasn't been on the boat yet. I think there's Killswitch Engage, but Jesse Leach was the first year, so that's sort of,
that's
does
true.
that count?
Yeah.
Does it not count?
Yeah.
Devin Townsend hasn't been on.
Devin. So Devin Townsend, we found out that Devin Townsend produced some of the albums, or a couple of the albums. I don't remember which ones.
I can't remember it was the first one or the second one. I think it was As the Palace Burns.
Is that what he produced?
I think so. But Mark talked about that book or whatever album that was, where the mixing after, I think that was the one where he's like, this just isn't a good mixing. I don't like this. It doesn't sound good. So maybe it was actually New American Gospel. I can't remember. Also, when they were recording, I think it may have been that New American Gospel as well, that it was very interesting to see that the band cared a lot about, and maybe it was actually the Burn the Priest demos, maybe it was that, or EPs, where they wanted to get their tracks laid down, the guitars, the drums, the bass, all that sort of stuff laid down and mixed. And to them, the vocals were always an afterthought. And they gave Randy like a night to do all of his vocals. And I think it was like the first 2 albums or something like that. And he's like, Randy came in and laid his vocals down over the course of one night, and it was fucking perfect. Like, one take, let's go type shit. Again, I thought those stories were really, really cool. I loved hearing those stories so much. But like I said, in any case, like, the thing I really enjoyed was hearing about him on the tour. I really enjoyed hearing him talk about time in the studio with different producers and how they were like heavy-handed sometimes, and sometimes they weren't heavy-handed. And like the band themselves was reluctant at first to let producers come in to like not be heavy-handed, because they don't want, like, this is the song I wrote. Like, don't come in here and tell me to change things around. Like, this is how I want it to be. So I thought that was really, really cool. In any case, they did their first 2 albums, I think it was, and then they were getting like a lot of buzz around them.
Maybe.
And,
I can't remember that timeline.
And they had like a showcase, and Randy got like super fucking blackout drunk and jumped off the stage into the crowd and like smacked his head and blacked out, like got knocked the fuck out, and had to go to.
And when you say showcase, is that when the producers came to
Yes.
see them? Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was called showcase, but when you were talking about the scenario, that's what I remember.
I think he called it a showcase. I
it
can't
could
remember.
be. I just don't remember.
No, right.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just saying I don't remember that.
No, I'm just saying I think it is. But basically a bunch of producers were there to see them, to hopefully sign them to a bigger label. And it did not go well, because Randy got knocked the fuck out after jumping headfirst into the crowd and hitting himself on the floor. He went to the hospital, got stitched up and whatnot, and they tried to soldier on as like an instrumental band again. They had one of the singers from like the lead band come out, or the headlining band come out and sing for them, or try to sing for them. They ended up getting somebody from the audience who knew the songs to come up and sing for them, and he did pretty well according to Mark in the book. But they left that being like, this was a fucking disaster. Except for, I think it was a little while later, they got a call from one of the A&R guys or whatnot from, I think it was Epic, I can't remember. But they're like, yeah, the head honcho in our company he's been telling everybody about the insanely good show he saw of yours the other night at that showcase thing. And they're like, holy fuck, we sucked. What the fuck? But this guy fucking loved the energy, loved their show. And they ended up getting a label, I think it was with Epic, for their next album. And, Mark was talking like they ended up buying out the rest of their contract with the other label. And Mark was like, it's sort of a win-win, because like having the contract bought out means now they have capital that they can go and help find other artists and get new artists to, come along with them to hopefully increase their landscape a little bit, or their footprint. As well as now we're going to a bigger label that has more dedicated energy, or can provide us with more resources that the smaller labels can't necessarily do. But the downside with that is the label now doesn't want you necessarily touring. They want you to push out a new album.
Yeah, they want you to have a record with them and not the old record, yeah.
Yep. Which is why we get Ashes of the Wake. I mean, we probably would have got that anyway, but they started working on Ashes of the Wake, their 3rd album. And again, I can't remember where all the stories necessarily come in, but they go back in the studio, they talk about that, who their producer was. I think this may have been a guy by Tank or something like that. I'm trying to remember, the name.
That name. No, but you could be right.
I that one I'm not confident on. Machine. They got Machine.
Machine, yeah.
Not Tank.
Yeah. And Machine helped them with a couple albums, if I remember.
Right. And I think Machine was the first one he came in, and that's where he was like, we don't want you to be heavy-handed at all. But then they brought him in again for another album, and he like sits down with them ahead of time. He's like, I will be a producer if you let me produce. I want to have input into the way songs are composed and whatnot. And I think he works on multiple albums with them as producer. They talk about being on tour, not only in the US, but traveling the world. They end up going to Europe, and I think in Ireland at some place. And this is where it's in Philadelphia, where he and Randy get in a fight.
In Scotland, yeah.
Yeah, in Scotland.
Yeah.
Not Ireland, sorry. Those are two different countries.
Well, they may have went to Ireland, but it's in Scotland that they get in the fight.
Yeah, the title of that one is Get Ready for a Sucker Punch.
Oh.
And
yeah.
Mark's like, he said that to me, get ready for a sucker punch, which is like the irony of that he calls out in the book. I think Randy also called him Laddie, because he was doing this fake
the Scottish
accent.
Yeah.
And he's like, he literally called me Laddie. You watch Philadelphia, you can hear him say Laddie.
Yeah. But in the book, he kind of says it as like, oh yeah, we were going at it on the bus and they were trying to keep us apart. And then we went out on the sidewalk and I just knocked his ass out, which is not how it happened. In Philadelphia, they show almost the entire fight, and they're like pulling each other's hair and like
it's not
girl
like
fighting kind of.
I've never actually been in a fight.
No, me neither.
But I've always in my head thought about it. And it's like, if I get in a fight, it's going to be like a boxing type match where I'm going to like fisticuffs and like we're going to stand and go toe to toe, like proper fighting. Honestly, if I ever got in a fight, it'd look just like that. I'm not going to lie. Where arms are flailing all over the place. You're just hitting for whatever you can.
Yeah. I mean, they were both drunk.
Also, they were both.
Randy was like
very drunk.
Very, very drunk. But so was Mark. I mean, Mark was drinking very heavily at this time too. But yeah, it wasn't as calm as the book. Well, not calm, but as quick as the book says.
He does call out that, Randy got thrown down, hit the back of his head, and I threw a few more punches at him. That is in and you can, I think you can hear the thunk when Randy hits the back of his head. Mark also hurt something on him. I don't know if he hurt his hand or his shoulder or what, but
like his arm or something.
Something got damaged or like broke on him in the body somewhere.
Something happened where he couldn't play the next night.
Yeah, and he ended up going to the hospital and getting painkillers to take care of that. Yeah. And I think this was the first time he said he took pills, or it's the first time I remember it coming up in the book. And it could have been earlier, but Randy's like, "What'd they give you?" And he's like, "Hook a brother up, give me some." And he ended up like splitting that with Randy. He's like, we both got in a fight. This is our reward for fighting each other.
I don't know if it was the first time he took pills, but I remember the whole splitting up with Randy sort of thing.
But this is where like the pill consumption aspect of it really takes off in the book for me, that I remember it, is because now from this point on, he talks a lot about how he got hooked up with pills internationally. Back home, he always had people. He talked about those relationships, which I've never bought drugs illegally from people. I've known friends who have and talked to them about like their experiences. And it all sounded very much like what I've heard other people talk about, of like, sometimes they're really buddy with you. Other times it's just sort of really sketchy, like just give me the money and I'm out type thing.
Yeah, I think after this point, it is very much just going through the motions of getting drunk every day, getting his fix on the pills, getting drunk every day, getting the fix on the pills, that sort of thing.
Mixing that in with tour life and producing albums and whatnot. And he goes through pretty chronologically every album we did. We did this tour, then we came off, we worked on this album, then we went on tour again. And he tells stories from almost all of that, which is really, really cool, like I said. And then he gets the call that his wife is pregnant, and expecting his first child, and he's like so fucking happy for that. And we talk a little bit about that, or we hear a little bit about that. This chapter is The Unthinkable. I believe the song for the beginning of this one was Metallica's Fade to Black.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Very fitting song for this chapter, I think. I did like the beginning of that where he talks about Fade to Black, and he's talking about how, like, there's different dark emotional things that a lot of heavy metal people can pull on from, like, not only just like Satan and murder and shit like that,
it's
but
like personal experiences and stuff like
emotional
that.
shit. Yeah. And his friend in like middle school or something was a big fan. They all were big fans of Metallica, but he had wrote down the lyrics like Fade to Black on his notebook, and the teacher saw it and sent him to the guidance counselor because he was a cry for help or some shit like that.
Yeah. People do that in like murder scenarios or something. It's like,
really?
Yeah, like, so they did it with the Chris Watt guy that murdered his entire family. It was basically like, oh yeah, like on his Spotify playlist, he listened to Metallica. And then same with Brian Laundrie, he listened to a playlist on his drive back from Montana, and after he killed his girlfriend, and it was like all these songs, so like that's why, like you could tell he did it because he listened to those songs or whatever.
Interesting.
And it's like, that's bullshit. I listen to those songs. I've never murdered anybody, and not planning on it anytime soon.
I guess I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't follow them as closely as you do, like the murder trials and whatnot, so I don't see it pop up all that much.
It just pisses me off when people do that, because I'm like,
I've always thought that was done and over with. I thought people were better with it now. Interesting.
No, they're still doing shit like that. There was one recently that they talked about like songs or something that they were listening to or something, and I'm like, you're stretching way too far there.
But this chapter is dealing with his first daughter and her passing.
Yeah. I didn't listen to this when
you read this on the plane, and I look over to you and you're just bawling your eyes out.
It's a hard chapter.
And again, it's touched on in the prologue at the very beginning. He talks, maybe a paragraph or so about the emotion and sort of what happened. And he goes more in depth in this chapter in terms of what happened. The one thing I remember from the prologue that was in this is that his daughter after birth, got airlifted to a bigger hospital that had, I don't know if it was better equipment or what, but where she needed to be to get the help she needed.
Yeah.
And Mark got in his truck and drove to the hospital and beat the helicopter there. And he says that in this chapter as well, where he's like, I drove as fast as I could. I got there. And as I got there, I see the helicopter starting to land. And he says to himself, I should have fucking drove her myself. And I was like, I get that. Yeah. It's the prologue. I was starting to get choked up a little bit. I didn't necessarily get choked up in this. I was going to read it, but I listened to it over lunch without you. And I didn't get choked up as much because when I started to, I just I kept playing it and would in my head think of something else. Like, I have to do this later today for work, and just sort of drown out what was going on.
What he was saying.
Because it's fucking hard. This chapter is very, very hard.
Not horrible, but it's a hard chapter.
Yeah. So we're gonna gloss over it a bit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, his first daughter dies in his arms, if I remember
Madeline.
right.
Yeah. It's.
And he was on tour. Sorry, I want to kind of make it happier-ish. Were they in Europe on tour when this happened?
Europe or Australia? I can't remember.
Australia, I think.
This was kind of cool when he was talking about that. So it was leading up to the birth. He was on tour. They had another member from a band. I can't remember who it was.
No. BTBM.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
I think so.
There were two different bands because he's left tour multiple times. In any case, whoever it was.
One of the times it is the guitarist for BTBM.
I don't remember
Between
that.
the Buried and Me, yeah.
Anywho, all right, maybe. One of the bands was definitely on the boat. I just can't remember what boat band it was.
Oh, here's something fun to say. That right before this happened, they were on tour with of their album Wrath, which sold 68,000 copies in its first week, was at number 2 on Billboard 200, second to Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
I'll try to find the band while you talk about this.
But another segue, I did like that whenever there was an album that came out, he talked about where it landed on the charts.
Yeah.
And there was the one album in German, like the German title album, that was their highest ranking album in Germany, because they can't seem to find a footing in Germany for some reason.
Yeah, right.
Which is really weird to me. Germans are just a fickle bunch.
This tour was Buzz McGrath from Unearth.
Unearth, yes.
Was when they were in Europe, he took over. So, yeah.
But I did like that when he would have to leave for whatever reason, somebody from a friend band or a friend of theirs from another band would come. They'd learn the songs and they'd watch their performance to understand what's going to happen and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I love to see that insight into how you switch out these different, like, we've never played on a tour with this person before potentially, and they always seem to like fit straight in. I forget that they're professional musicians.
That this is what they do every day.
Right.
But we've seen that on tours where, a certain person can't be there, or somebody had to leave the tour, or something happened, and where somebody fills in, and it is very seamless. Now maybe the first couple nights it's not seamless, and we've just happened to get further onto the tour where it is seamless, but it does go pretty well. So. And it's amazing to me that somebody can just pick up and play. I'm sure that they were they were on tour with Metallica, so they were probably the first opener. So they probably had like 7 or 8 songs. I'm assuming 6 or 7 songs. Yeah, probably.
And like I said, he did say that in the book where he's like, he learned our songs and he came to watch a couple shows to figure out our rhythm and whatnot. So, and again, I forget they're professional musicians. So that's the job you have to do. So yeah, agreed. Like, it's seamless because they're professionals and they're doing their thing.
I can't walk into any other company that does what my company does and just sit down and start working and know what I'm doing.
There's definitely homework you have to have ahead of time. I think I could do it just because of the type of work I do is different than yours, from a tech perspective. So different industries, I guess, different professions. Anywho, what were we saying?
Oh, we're talking about his daughter dying, unfortunately.
Right.
That's why we're talking around it and not talking about it. So, yeah, they ended up going to Charlottesville, it looks like. I'm just flipping through really quick. For the hospital, that's when he got there quicker than the helicopter did.
I remember it being a very up and down. Like, she's going to be okay. She's not doing well. She's going to be okay. Good, and eventually, it's like, she's going to be fine. You need to go home. You can go home, pack some bags so you can be more comfortable here. Then when he gets home, he gets the call from the nurse, like, it's not going to be well. You need to get here as soon as you can, type thing. And that's when it was sort of like, the end.
Yep. Then him and his wife, he stays off tour, which he was planning on being off tour for a while, but him and his wife grieve, I guess, at home.
They all do the mourning their own way, basically.
Yeah. Well, and then they decide that he's going to rejoin the tour. I think his tour manager was like, hey, why don't you come rejoin the tour? He takes that advice, and she comes with him.
Yes.
And in the bus, because they have their own bus at this point or whatever, so the band kind of gives them the back area of the bus to kind of be or whatever.
Which I think he said typically is like gear. Loaded up with gear. We get the coffin bunks, but the band gave us the entire back cabin. Yeah,
so they did that, but she only stayed on tour with them for
a little bit.
And then she decided to go home, sort of thing.
Go home and, heal your own sort of ways, I guess.
Yeah. She wanted normalcy back to her life, I think, if I remember right.
And I think this is where, again, like the drinking and the consumption of drugs definitely increased.
It did, because
drastically.
I remember him saying that he was on stage and on tour.
Yes.
Not necessarily on stage, but on tour, and everybody's having a grand time and all this, and he's
happy
just
and joking.
Yeah, and he's just, grieving still.
How the fuck can you be so happy right now? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the bandmates were very sympathetic to everything that him and his wife were going through, but it definitely was when he was doing more substances to cope with his emotions, because it was the only way he could get through the day, basically.
That's definitely what I took from the book as well. It's definitely like, this is a coping mechanism to help me get through what I need to do.
Yeah, so it was like a bottle of vodka a day, if I remember right, and oxycodone, if I remember right.
I can't remember exactly.
I don't know if we could say that on YouTube.
Pills. Bottle of pills.
Yeah,
and
pills.
He lists out what size they are. And again, that's at the very beginning of the book as well. That's how it starts.
880 milligram O's.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if we can say that word on YouTube, but.
For pain.
Yeah. Painkillers.
Very strong painkillers.
Yeah. So, and then he had a regimen of taking a little bit before he went on stage, a little bit after he went on stage.
Maintain the level of high I can do.
Yep.
But again, your tolerance builds up over time, so you have to do more and more.
Yep.
And like I said, at the beginning of the book, he's talking about, I had a predefined milligram dosage I would allow myself to do a day, which was like 500.
That was no, that would kill you.
That's what I thought. I thought he said like 5, maybe 300. It was a fuck ton, I thought. My self-imposed, I think so. It's like my self-imposed X milligrams a day.
Oh, maybe that wouldn't kill you.
All right, limit of 300 milligrams a day.
Okay.
Is what his
not
limit.
at a time, but a day.
A day, yeah.
So that would be him doing it like every couple hours or whatever, right. He was. So, and he started with drinking beer with it. That wasn't doing anything. So then he moved to the vodka, if I remember
Eventually,
right.
It wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Like I needed to do stuff faster and whatnot.
And he talked about how the alcohol was the easy part, because they would get that on riders, or they would have that on the bus or whatever the case is. And so that was the easy part. It was always getting the pills that were the hard part, because they would have to have a connection in the city. Sometimes they wouldn't show up. When they went to Europe, that was even harder, because you can't travel across borders with it.
He did talk about how he would sneak pills across, and like a part of me was like, when he mentioned that, like, it's really hard to sneak drugs into a country and through customs and whatnot. And then I was like, I'm curious to see how you did it, but you're probably not going to say. He does explain one of his methods on how to do it. I'm not going to say what it is. Read the book and find it out.
If you want to find out. But so basically going back and forth daily on, trying to find a supplier. Well, is it called a supplier? A dealer?
Dealer, supplier, same, I guess.
Or a connection in the country that he's in, which sometimes works, sometimes didn't.
He had connections through the years as well that he could use.
He found out some countries prescribe pills that have half ibuprofen, half the pill that he takes.
Yeah.
And he learned how to extract the portion that he took versus the ibuprofen, because the ibuprofen was tearing up his liver. So I don't know how he does not explain how he does that.
Yeah, he said something along like hotel chemistry labs that he would do and whatnot.
Yeah, so.
Also, like before all this, or during all this as well, he's still contributing music to Lamb of God. And he goes in and talks about all the songs that he helped write as we're talking, again, as we're going through each album. He'd say, I provided lyrics for this album, talking about who provided what and whatnot. So hearing some of the songs that he wrote, I was like, holy shit, I did not know you wrote that. I think one was like Laid to Rest.
No, I knew that one. Yeah.
I was like, that's one of
I'm
the
pretty
biggest
sure
songs
Randy
you
said
have.
that.
I know he said Redneck, but I didn't know Laid to Rest too.
Yeah, I thought that Randy mentioned that. But
maybe he did. I just forgot. But like he goes through and mentions a bunch of the songs he wrote. It's like, holy shit, I did not know you were so involved lyrically writing this. And I didn't know that before Randy said it also, though.
Oh,
so
no,
like,
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
If I didn't know that, I would not have. I would have been shocked by even the fact that he was writing lyrics to these songs.
Yeah, if you didn't know beforehand.
Yeah, but as Mark's going through more and more with his addiction, he keeps writing about the misery and the addiction, and even using the death of Madeline for inspiration, so to speak, for his lyrics. And by this time, Randy's been clean for a few years, or sober, not clean, sober for a few years.
Yes, yeah.
And Randy's starting to push back. He's like, no, I'm not fucking singing this song. I don't want to sing these songs. And there was one song that Randy wanted to change the words from me to you, where he's talking about being consumed by addiction.
Yeah, what song is that?
I can't remember, but Randy was like, I don't want to sing about this. I don't relate to this. I'm clean. I'm not going to sing about me being an addict. I'm going to say you, so I don't have to like make people think it's about me type thing.
Yeah. Sorry, now I'm like trying to think of the lyrics and I can't picture it.
Yeah, I can't remember what song it was, honestly.
Yeah.
That's what we get for not taking notes.
Yeah, I know.
Again, I loved all that sort of talk about all of that. And
yeah,
whatnot.
I like the talk of the tour and the music writing and the songs and how he came up with the lyrics or the riff or whatever the case is. Yeah, I really enjoy those parts.
But also at some point he says, I need to get some help. And he goes and checks into rehab.
This is after his second daughter is born.
Yes, they end up getting another daughter or getting pregnant.
Yeah, just going and grabbing a kid.
Yeah, no.
So his wife gets pregnant again. They have another daughter who they were very terrified to have.
Rightfully so.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. But that was she's healthy.
It was almost a year after.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. They were on tour with, I remember this as well. They were on tour with Jonathan Davis from Korn.
Yep.
And he made a real good connection with Jonathan Davis. They would always smoke cigars. And right before he was supposed to leave, he walks up to him. He's like, hey, yeah, so we're going to get you a rocking chair. Like, my daughter loves it. Let her sleep so I could sleep. You're going to fucking love that. So he got her like this little rocking chair thing for her, which she's like, that's fucking awesome. That's so cool that this guy who's like so big. And he also, during this part, is talking about how Lamb of God's not a radio-friendly band. We're not on the radio. So we're playing this tour headlined by a bunch of radio-friendly bands. And the audience really took to us, which we were shocked by. Like, that we're not quite the same things, but the fact that all these bands really like us was awesome. Fans really liked us was awesome. But yeah, I see that from a fan perspective as well. Like, I like the radio rock, the radio metal stuff. I prefer the heavier stuff like Lamb of God. But yeah, I dabble in both. So, and I see it too. I see fans at all of it. So, and maybe that's where I was earlier on saying about the whole imposter syndrome, being like, why would these fans like us type things? We're not the same radio friendly type stuff.
Yeah, and I just never took it that way. I just was like that they, would win over the crowd every time.
But like when he's even talking about for each album, he's like, we released this album on this date. It debuted on number 3 of the top 200. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Lamb of God got that high on the top 200. Like, I never assumed they even made it into the top 10, but they made it pretty high on a lot of their shit.
I do think you were saying, like talking about his addiction and stuff. And I'm pretty sure it was after his second daughter was born that he would try his best to like be present.
Yes.
And clear-minded, if that makes sense. But he wasn't doing a very good job of faking it.
Yeah.
And that's where his wife was like, you have a problem. Like you need to fix your problem, basically.
And even in the studio too. I think it was Machine again, like they were working on an album and he would nod off during recording.
While he's playing. Yeah.
And at one point, like practicing getting ready for the songs, but then Machine or the producer walked up to him. It was basically like, I need you to be present tomorrow and good to go because we're recording your guitar. We need you to be good to go. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I appreciated the fact that he came up and did that and told me that. I also feel like I should not have put him in that situation where he had to do that. I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely goes deeper into the consumption of items.
Oh, they go to Korea, Seoul, Korea, and he didn't get his. They were flying through Chicago.
Oh yeah.
He was supposed to have a connection here in Chicago. That connection did not show up. So basically, he was on the flight all the way to Seoul, Korea, like detoxing, I guess, or what's that called? Not detoxing.
Oh, what was it? Not flu, like the pill flu or the
dope sick.
Dope sick. Yeah, he was dope sick.
We're not in this world to know these terms very well. So yeah, but then he gets this connection again once they get to Europe.
And he would talk about how he would try to address not being dope sick and how he would like take certain substances to help him wind off of the withdrawal aspect of things. I think methadone was one of the things. He would go to like a clinic and take
did he? Yeah. I think so. And that's when after him and his wife like got divorced, and then he met a girl at a bar at a club or something.
So he ends up going to...
But that's when he takes the methadone.
Yeah.
After that.
At some point, yeah. But he ends up going to rehab, checking himself in. His father gets sick, and it's not going to be good. He's going to pass away.
Yeah.
The clinic allows him day passes so he can go spend the time with his father while he can, which is not something that typically happens. And it was important for Mark to be present for his, rehab and whatnot. So he's very grateful that they allowed him to do that so he can spend that time with his father. Goes through rehab, comes out, and I think it sticks for a little bit, but then eventually he slips again and it doesn't stick. And then eventually he kind of glosses over it, but he's like, I come home, and at that point my wife had moved into an apartment.
Yeah.
He never actually specifically says we got divorced.
That's true. But he marries the other lady.
Sure, so, and that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So this last half of the book, this last couple chapters of the book are very quick.
They are quick, yeah.
The first half up to this point is
up until his daughter dying. It's very like this happened, and then it's
and lots of detail.
Yeah,
and maybe that's sort of a representation of his state of mind of not necessarily being present for all of that and not having the clear memory of everything that necessarily happened. Maybe. But this last part is very, very quick. Boom, 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 boom. His wife moved into her apartment. He ends up playing with another band of his or some friends of his at like a casino bar or something. They were getting up like
that's what it was,
country rock or something going on. And the friend's like, hey, yeah, you might want to come down and check out the bartender. And he's like, yeah, by that time I was already dating another woman from somewhere. And he goes down and meets the bartender who ends up becoming his wife down the road. Brittany, I think was her name, or is her name? Not was. She's still around.
I think so.
And they have another daughter as well together that he brings up at the end of the book.
But she, so I think her though is like kind of a double-edged sword sort of thing because like they have a good relationship together, but she's a very heavy drinker, like can outdrink him.
Yeah, he did say that she also had an incident with heavy drugs earlier in her life that she's like, I'm not doing, I'm no longer doing heavy drugs. I'll smoke pot and I'll drink a bunch of fucking alcohol.
Yeah.
And then when he's on tour, a good friend of hers passes away and you see her start to slip as well. Again, using substances to help cope with the loss of or with pain, basically.
I thought that's what made her decide to go to rehab.
she got really, really bad. The way I remember it is she got really bad after that loss.
Oh, okay.
And then eventually it was like,
And then went to
she got like, because she got very, very sick, like dry heaving and shit. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go to rehab.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
And around that same time, Mark is in Europe, and he's like, I too need to.
Yeah. So they did
up.
it separately, but together.
Yeah, he just called it out like, we're going to go through this on our own journey. Yeah. We're going to do this together, but it's going to be a thing that we're going to do together, just not together.
Yeah.
Which he does talk about being in Europe with his friend. I can't remember who his friend was. Was it Stu?
Stu.
Not the real name, but
yeah. He just says like, we'll call him Stu. He's like does something with the band. I don't remember.
I don't know if he's like a guitar tech type person or. Sure. Basically, Mark's like, Stu can do everything better than I can except play guitar.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Stu's a much better person at every aspect of things than I am. They're good friends. They find the poppy seeds at like a playground, and they talk about how they like broke into the schoolyard to steal basically.
Yeah, they're in Switzerland and
drugs.
They found poppy plants.
Yeah. And
they get them to extract them.
Honestly, this last part of the book I did not enjoy. The post rehab, it felt like every other post rehab drug story or movie or whatever I've seen or heard. Like it's a very repetitive story, and it's like one you hear all the time, which like it's a true story. Like that's like, I saw this in a movie, and it's like, but it's the same thing that happens in real life. So it was that, and just how quick it went. I did not enjoy that.
Yeah, the part of the Switzerland story that I really think could resonate with somebody reading the book is they had a day off, and that's why they went to the schoolyard to get the poppy plants or whatever. And he has a line in the book where he said something about, I spent my day off in this wonderful country.
Yeah.
Getting drugs, basically. Yeah. Or trying to get drugs.
Like they were going to lunch or something, and they happened to see the plant in the school, and they're like, all right, well, this is our new thing we're going to do today.
Yeah. So instead of exploring or seeing a beautiful country of Switzerland, they did that. So I can see that really being something that anybody reading it who's
gone through this same thing. Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I mean, honestly, sober stories aren't necessarily like that.
Riveting.
Also, like, I mean, I got sober. Okay, cool. Like, not okay, cool, but you know, it is almost the same thing. Like, you know, I had all this shit happen.
Yeah.
And now I'm sober, sort of
thing. I mean,
and I know it doesn't happen like that, but you know, it's a lot of work and everything like that.
And like I said, the things that really drew me to the book were hearing about time on the road, hearing about the studio stuff. I know this is, you know, an autobiography, so you're going to go through your life, but we gloss over Art Cruz coming into the band.
A little bit. He says that Chris leaves.
It wasn't a good separation.
Way. Yeah, they parted ways, and that's when Art comes in. Yeah,
and that's it.
I mean, that's very close to the end. But honestly, at this point, there wasn't much more to say about that because this was in 2019, and that's when Art came in is 2019. So they didn't have.
I mean, this was written in 2024, so you have 5 years. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
But
like,
you don't know if it was written in 2024. It came out in 2024.
Sure,
it could have been written
before.
It could have been written in 2020 when they weren't doing shit because nobody was doing shit.
Yeah.
So you don't know when it was actually written, but there's not much to say about Art in the band because there's no timeline for that.
But then what I was saying is like, why don't we know more about what led to Art coming into the band?
Maybe that's because that's either
about Chris leaving.
Maybe that's because that's Chris's story to tell, or it's Art's story to tell, not necessarily Mark's story to tell.
Maybe it is.
I mean, it has.
I get the vibe that it's. I mean, the way he said it, it seemed like it was not an amicable split. Like it was definitely a harsh split. But hearing like Chris talk about it in like a podcast or something where he got like an email saying you're left the band, or you're out of the band right now, type thing. And like seeing how important Chris was, especially early days, like we were friends in college, we were in the same dorm, you know, together and whatnot. So again, the last tail end of this book was very quick, boom, 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 boom. I would have liked to seen that drawn out a little more, just a little criticism on the book. But like you said, you know, this was 2019, give it 10, 15, 20 more years. Maybe we get the second book by Mark Morton, which covers from this point forward,
Potentially, yeah.
which I would fucking love. I'm not gonna lie.
But yeah, I think that's probably more why it's not in here. Is either one, like there's no history to say in there, or it's he wants them to tell their story and
Maybe,
not him
yeah,
to tell their story.
maybe.
So
All I'm saying is I would like to see.
Yeah.
I would like to hear his side.
you
of
do
it, I
have the
guess.
little bit of him going off onto his solo stuff that he started doing.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did his first solo tour and he released a single with Chester. I think that's where you were kind of bringing that up at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that, like we were trying to figure out how, what this goes through. So yeah, when he was recording with Chester, and he kind of, I liked this story about Chester because he, I don't remember who told him to go try to get Chester or whatever. And was it Stu again?
No, I think it was the producer who was working with on the album.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was Machine
Okay.
Gun or not, but he's like, they got a bunch of people that he wanted to work with for songs. And he's like, we have this song. It's really catchy. It's going to be a big song. We need to get a big voice for it. And his producer's like, why not Chester Bennington? And he's like, sure. We should just ask Jimmy Page too while we're at it. And then they asked him, and sure, Chester like came along or something along those lines, right?
Yeah. Basically, what I was going to say is they were like, I mean, we're okay with his manager saying no.
Yeah.
We'll ask, but
What's the worst thing he can say? No.
yeah, exactly. But they did produce that, released it on January 8th, 2019. That's what we were kind of talking about at the beginning, which is Cross Off. And then when they left that recording, Chester was all like, oh, this was so much fun. Let's do this again, all that. And then, unfortunately, Chester took his own life on
3 months later.
July 20th, 2019.
Yeah. It said 3 months later in the book, but that doesn't seem right.
Well, I got confused because Ozzy died on July 22nd.
Oh.
Chester died on July 20th.
And that's also a really cool story of how they worked together, where they're like passing notes back and forth across the table of like lyric ideas and building the lyrics out themselves and whatnot.
Sorry, I got confused. Chester died July 20th, 2017, but the song was released January 8th, 2019, but they recorded it in 2017.
Right. 3 months before his passing.
They recorded it.
And
right. Then it was released. This is all over the place then, because
you're looking at the epilogue, the final chapter here.
Oh.
Where it's sort of like a final wrap up of what's going on.
A wrap up of everything.
Chester was in the previous chapter.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm getting confused. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. I was like, this doesn't make sense because he's talking about how he's sober in 2018, but I'm like, Chester's already passed away by then. And sorry. I shouldn't be flipping through the book. We should just talk from our memory.
There was one part when he finally does get sober where he's like, I didn't drink that day. I didn't drink the next day. And I haven't drank since.
Yeah. That's very reminiscent of Randy's story. I got up. I didn't have a beer. I went for a walk. Went back to my room. Didn't have a beer. Went and played a show. Didn't have a beer. And I'm sure we've never had a fight with addiction, but I'm sure that's what it is. It's just day by day. Hour by hour at first, and then day by day.
And even Randy, during his chat in the book tour that we saw, he basically was like, I'm freaking the fuck out. And I see James Hetfield and his crew or the people he's with, and they're like, you're okay. You're going to make this through this just one day at a time. Go on.
Oh, right. Because they were on tour in Australia.
Yeah. And then the next day I'm freaking the fuck out again. Meet up with them. It's all right. You're going to be fine. You're doing good. Just one day at a time type thing.
He does. Mark does talk about some people who've really helped him through his journey, which Slash is one of them.
Yeah.
That helped with this sober antics or whatever.
And maybe again, that's where the imposter syndrome thing came as well in my head. Is he was asking Slash about because that was when he first tried to get sober the first time, and he's like, almost my entire life, drinking and consumption of drugs helped me with my creative process. How can I be sober and be creative? I feel like I'm going to start slipping to get back into that. And Slash is basically you can't be thinking yourself of I have to be, wasted to write or something. You're just going to have to find who you are now in life type thing. If I remember how that whole thing went.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard that from other people who are I could only do XYZ thing when I was drunk. So
I can't do that thing now.
I can't do that anymore or whatever the case is. So
that that's it. That's a quick run through of the book.
Quick hour and a half.
We haven't really ranked the other two books.
Oh, I don't want to rank them. That's
you don't
so
want to rank
stupid.
them?
No,
Give
that's
like a
so
grade
stupid.
to it or something? Okay.
Well, this would be number 1, and then, or is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you had to give it a score between 1 and 10.
Oh, I don't.
You don't care about that?
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I know that's something you and your book club people do, but no, we'll just read books and talk about them.
Quickly wrapping up then, I really, really did enjoy this book. Like I said, it hit the things I wanted to see within the studio on the tour. The beginning was hard for me to get into, and the last couple chapters of the book were, to me, they felt very, very rushed.
Yeah.
I wanted more meat on the bones,
It wraps
so to
up
speak.
very quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's still a fucking fantastic book. Definitely worth picking up and reading if you're into Lamb of God, into the music industry. Definitely worth picking up. Or if you're just curious, I would definitely pick it up even still.
Yeah, definitely if you're, everything you just said. I have to say, on the back of the book, there is a quote from Corey Taylor, who is the lead singer of Slipknot, Stone Sour, and author of 7 Deadly Sins.
The book we read in a second.
And Randy on here, which is the singer of Lamb of God. And they quote author of Dark Days, but not of... Oh, yeah, that is what we read, right?
Dark Days is the first one.
Yeah.
Beyond the Lights is new book, which I don't think was out when this came out.
Oh, I don't think so. But I thought that was kind of funny that both of those have
like a little blurb.
No, these are the 3 books that we've done now.
Oh, yes.
That's what I was saying.
Gotcha.
Yes. Sorry, I talk slow and you...
I talk too fast.
Interrupt.
I know. But yes, those are the 3 books we've read.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what our next book will be. Is it going to be the Ozzy?
Maybe. Yeah. We got that on Audible for free. Yeah.
So, okay. Last Rites might be the next book for us for the next book club. Yeah. Don't know when that will be out.
Or a death metal book that we saw at
a death metal book, yeah.
Record store. So.
But we will do another book club. I do like reading these books and learning what I can. Like I said, it gives great insight into it. But Lamb of God is going to be in town in 2 days.
Yes.
And we're going to go see them in concert.
Yeah.
So
I just realized at the beginning of this episode, we did not say this is not going to be like any of our other episodes that we have been recording.
Oh, I just dove into it. Like, it's a book club episode. You know what the fuck, like we've done 2 of them, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Desolation, a heavy metal memoir by Mark Morton and Ben Opry. Great fucking book. Appa Perry. Again, sorry, Ben.
I don't know how to say his last name either, so I'm probably saying it wrong.
But like I was saying, Lamb of God's in town in 2 days, so we're going to go check out some live music. And we'll do another book club, but until then, we're going to go see a lot more live music, and you should too. So we'll see you at the next show.
Bye.